Good evening, everyone. This is a regular meeting of the Urbana Community Development Commission. We have an agenda for this evening, and we'll start with my calling the meeting to order. We are now in order. Next, we'll have roll call.
Fred Cobb.
Here.
Brian Cunningham. Lauren Carplus. Janice Bankston.
Here.
Ann Hines Silvas.
Here.
Chris Diana. Jerry Moreland.
Here.
Lisa Beth Searing.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, next we have consideration of our minutes from the previous meeting. And let's see, those minutes are dated January 27th, 2015. We'll take a moment and refresh our memory on these, after which I'll entertain a motion for approval or modification.
Isn't it the wrong date?
It is the
Sorry,
wrong
I'm
date.
That's where I was-
Yes.
yep,
It should
'cause
be
we talked
March
about a March
24th.
30th. Yeah,
And
March 24th.
I didn't have any issue with the content of the minutes, but under petitions and communications, there's an extra word in there somewhere. Is that? I think it's from, so it should just be if anyone in the audience had any comments, and there were none.
Thank you. I will make sure to cross that out.
Semicolon after comments, leave out from.
So,
Okay, is everyone finished reviewing? If so, entertain a motion for approval. We've got a motion for approval. I was
Second.
absent the last two meetings because of family matters, but I trust you all remember. Okay, is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes as written, and this, except that the date is for March 24th, 2015. Any, all in favors? Let's see, any comments, questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Any opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the minutes are approved as written. Okay, next we have petitions and communications. Kelly?
We haven't received anything written, so. Yes. Well, the agenda we now, per the bylaws, the petitions and communications is anything written, and then audience participation is anything, if anybody in the audience. Yes. I'll just hit a couple of the highlights. Received a couple of letters from HUD. One was to close out one of our grants, and the other was regarding our 4-month progress for our home program, regarding our commitments. And I think we also received in this time frame was a letter about our monitoring. I think it came as well, and I did not get that on there, so for our home program. And then you can see all the tasks and accomplishments that staff completed, and also meetings that were attended. So if you have any questions, let me know. That is a grant from the Illinois Attorney General for a foreclosure settlement. It's a national foreclosure settlement. There was a nationwide, not if it was a lawsuit, but there were the 5 major banks, because of their practices, have to pay money, and Illinois was involved in that and got some millions of dollars. And then they put out an RFP for teams, groups, organizations to apply to use that money for housing counseling and other purposes with regard to foreclosures. So Habitat for Humanity was the main group organization, and then they called a team like Novadet, the cities, U of I, and applied to the Attorney General for the funds and received those. And so they are purchasing properties and rebuilding and such as well. Yes, Jen, you want to share anything about that, or do you have any further questions about it? Yeah. Sure. Yes, we have the draft consolidated plan and annual action
all?
plan
I thought it was on.
for you to review and to make a final recommendation for council. Per the memo, because we are a recipient of CDBG and home is why we are required to do this consolidated plan, 5-year plan. And it helps to guide our using of those resources, the home and CDBG. The draft plan, in this one, it's a new format. It's an electronic system, which is why you will find that there are some blank spots, because we are learning and working to use this system, because it is a new system with a lot of bugs and kinks in it. So so we are working, but we will have them figured out before it's due to HUD. So and then in the memo, you can see that there was the public hearing that was held. The beginning of the next program year will be July 1st, so we have to submit this by no later than May 15th. It's 45 days before the beginning of the new fiscal year. And then also you'll see the annual action plan, and we list what our allocation is for both CDBG and home, and compare it to fiscal year 14-15, and showing that there has been a reduction. And then you'll see the, also in the memo, listing the proposed budget for home and for CDBG with the options. So I guess we wanted to start out, I know we had requested that you look over it over the last month. If you're able to do so, that will, since it's such a large document. And then if you had any comments or questions, things that we can, add it into the comment section of the plan would be good. And I know I received your email. I need to go through those in more detail to get the answers for you.
Yeah,
So.
it was mostly just not understanding some of it than it was. It was mostly just not understanding some of it than it had anything
Okay.
like that seemed off or anything. It just and it came across acronyms I wasn't familiar with, and,
okay.
and a few things like that. So
Mhm.
I suppose my biggest question would have been if there's several times you talk about like the impact of students on some of our numbers and like their transient nature in our community, and what's the impact of all of that on how our application looks to HUD, I guess would be my question, if at all. I don't know how that would figure into.
I guess it would depend on where the students live. I mean, mostly, look at like target areas, in the
Mhm.
city, where there's the low mod, areas. So, I'm not sure how much of an impact, it would have. Maybe close to campus, in that census tract, but I think most of the other ones, I don't think there would be much of an impact.
Okay.
I have a question. I was reading that the issue of affordable housing came up, and it was mentioned that a large number of people had been displaced by houses that were housing that was torn down and so on. There was a difference in the numbers of displaced people from 72 to somebody counted 150 or something like that, and they wanted to, see if what was really accurate. I was wondering if that issue of people not being able to afford the housing that exists and housing that's going to be built is addressed sufficiently in the plan, or how is that resolved, or is it resolved in this plan? I didn't really see it. Because they really, it was mentioned in there that that was accurate, that there are a lot of people that just can't afford the housing.
Mhm. Well, I think that some rents, that rents can be driven by students, which, particularly like 3 and 4 bedrooms, I think that can be for families that are low income, may not be able to afford those.
And that there's a developer who's going to develop something,
Mhm.
some housing, and we don't really have all the information on what the costs are going to be for
Right,
that
'cause
development.
because it's new.
Do we have any more information?
No, I mean, they're still in the
Still
beginning
don't know.
processes, yeah,
Mhm.
of meeting with the neighborhoods and,
Mhm.
and gathering information, so, no, we don't have
Mhm.
further information on that from the developer.
Any other questions?
I think on that same note, I mean, do we know in the past, like when the homes by Crystal Lake Park were built, I mean, how many units had been there? How many were replaced that are occupied by low-income families versus are more of the mixed nature of that development. Do we
Mhm.
know those numbers?
Well, I know that the public housing that was there was Lakeside Terrace, and there were 99 units. And I believe at the time, council wanted pretty close to that number, but Brinshaw was the developer, and they ended up with 70 units, less density. I'm not sure if that was because of IDA or regulations, but so there's 70 units. I don't have the breakdown, but I can certainly find that out and get that information for you. But I don't have the breakdown on what the.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we can anticipate something similar happen, at least, you know, if there were 99 units and now there are 70 and they're not all occupied by people who would have qualified for public housing before, that something similar might happen in this one in terms of the number of units that are
Drop.
built, that's going to drop, and then they're not all probably going to be occupied
Mhm.
by that same group of people, of
Well,
income.
Yeah, well, I think for Aspen Court, I think it will be the same number because I think they're not going to like demolish and rebuild. They're just going to completely rehab it. So I think it'll be the same number of units there. Now on Urbana Townhome site, there might be more units. I'd have to look at the plans in comparison to what was on for Urbana Townhomes.
Kelly, as I recall, when we talked about the changeover from the traditional concentration of housing to what they call mixed income now,
Mhm.
where some of them are at market rate and some of them are available as subsidized or lower rent, the idea was to provide a one-for-one match, and that would be a mix of those units available to low income plus a Section 8 voucher. And the vouchers, you know, wouldn't be there on site, but they would be somewhere else in the community. And the idea was then that there wouldn't be that concentration of low-income housing in one area, and people could, you know, choose other places to live besides that one spot with a voucher. So it would add up to what we had before, at
Mhm.
least.
I also think the
Little
Housing
scattered.
Authority is, yeah, the Housing Authority is moving away from the voucher to more of project-based, so that it's on the unit versus the one that moves around, I think. That seems to be through their moving to work. They want to have more hard units versus the voucher itself.
I mean, I think nationally, the problem with the voucher has been that there aren't as many places for people with vouchers to go to rent as there were people who were moved out of spaces and given vouchers. And I mean, I don't think that's any different here. So I think we just need to be realistic that there were people who got lost in the shuffle, which is part of why we need to continue to work for affordable housing. So, I mean, it underscores, I think, all the work that your office does to pull these grants together and make these things happen.
Kelly, what about the scattered site effort that HUD was pursuing? They're not doing that anymore?
Scattered site.
You know, they gave you the Section 8
Mhm.
voucher, and you could use that elsewhere in the community
They
as
still
best you
have, they
could.
still have those. They're just a limited number. But like I said, through the moving to work, now that they're moving to work, I think that the Housing Authority is looking more at the project-based hard units versus those. But they still do have those as well. And I think they also recently received some HUD VASH that are like for veterans. And they work with Danville. So they have some of those that are specific for a population.
Let's see, go ahead.
I had a question about the 2015 to 2019 consolidated plan, and that it says that the consolidated plan can be amended to include other projects. So essentially that would be saying, and I just wanna make sure I understand that, like, after the plan is submitted and the money is received, that if there's a change in the need in the community, that you can actually, it's not too arduous a process to move the funds if necessary to whatever other projects are here.
But, yeah, I think it's like
So
a
it's not
30,
set, right?
yeah, it's like a 30-day process, I think,
Okay.
for, yeah, we'd state the need and there would be the public comment, so.
Okay.
Mhm.
Another question I had, in here, there were, summary of comments from various sources, and in some of the spaces for comments, it says that the minutes have not been submitted from various entities. When, have the minutes, are minutes still absent? Still waiting for minutes?
I think, I think we're still working on those, so.
Oh,
yeah,
still
but,
working on-
Yeah, I mean, this is still considered a draft. I mean, we're working to get it
Mhm.
finalized, because it is due this, but yeah, we have,
Okay.
still waiting on some minutes, so,
Mhm.
yeah, we will have those.
Other comments, questions? Okay, when will, when do you anticipate this will be finalized, or more complete?
Well, it'll be going to council next Monday,
Mhm.
so I think by then, or around that date.
Okay, after that, the commission, our input will no longer be accepted, or will it?
No, we're still, I mean, that's why we met tonight, I mean, and
Yeah,
yes, we will continue if you have any
We'll
comments.
continue until that time?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, we'll take more, a few more days, yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyone have suggestions for additions to these plans, deletions?
Is there any section that we need to go over that needs clarifying, or?
Could you,
Budget?
could you, well, that too, could you clarify for me, about the housing problems where specifically what section addresses, common problems that, renters have? So one of them that you talked about in the very beginning was, this is just in the outline parts portion in the beginning, where you're talking about the characteristics and the problems of the community, and one that you talked about was, what do you call it when you make the first month plus the last month, the security deposit? So one of the issues that came up again and again, it was said in the beginning, was security deposit.
Page number.
Page. It's around 30, sorry. 32, sorry. At the bottom, specify particular housing characteristics that have been linked with instability and an increase in homelessness. And it said specifically, about halfway down the paragraph, this was identified to be in particular, a related characteristics that was identified by CCRPC staff as a key barrier to housing in Champaign County is the inability to obtain sufficient funding to pay for a security deposit and/or utilities of a new rental or ownership unit. So I was just wondering specifically how that's addressed in the plan.
Lauren, can you turn your mic on?
Oh, sorry.
I would say, so the way that we address these issues in the consolidated plan are all identified in our annual action plan. So that's a really good question. That's kind of the main way that we, I guess, address that, because that question is really focused on homelessness and avoiding homelessness is
Right.
through the tenant-based rental assistance program.
Okay.
So that's assisting those households that are at or below the 30% of the median family income. And those are kind of the most vulnerable population, because they really, you're right, they don't even have savings for a security deposit on a place to live, or maybe they have been evicted or they have bad credit. All these things can, kind of
Right.
almost debar you from being able to rent. And so the TBRA program is great because it's like guaranteed rent, so it makes the landlord comfortable to take you on. And then you also have the case management side
Okay.
that our various service providers offer, and it's been great because some of them have been able to return to school, pick up a degree program that they'd had to kind of stop because family things got in the way. Or so I would say in our annual action plan we have Regional Planning Commission is committing their dollars to continuing the TBRA program, and then we just you all just approved an amendment to further the TBRA funding. To kind of supplement that too. So I would say that's probably the number one activity that addresses the most at-risk population for home. I can't really speak to CDBG on that, but yeah.
Okay. Okay, anyone else? I guess we need to really go over this a little bit more. There were some things in here that I saw that it seemed to be unresolved. So I think we should address those or have some sort of comments on those unresolved issues, or at least when they're resolved, we should be informed of what the resolutions are for the unresolved things.
Do you have any specific pages or anything that you've noticed?
Well, I saw something about the city's going to make up $31,000 for, I don't see it in front of me right now, but the city was going to put in $31,000 of its money, so that Habitat could do its development. And there was some question about that $31,000 had been previously assigned for other purposes. So the other purpose is going to be affected by the city putting in the $31,000. So I was wondering how that situation was going to be resolved. They said they were going to reduce the amount of money, that just totally reduce it or something. That $31,000 that was for the alternative purpose, which I'm trying to think of.
Are you thinking of Choto operating, or
No.
it was a development?
No, there was supposed to be $10,000 for three things, and the $10,000 would be reduced.
Was it so the 301 Thompson build that fell through? Is that what you're thinking of? Because it's not a part of this plan, I don't think. That might have been an old
Let's see.
item. Yeah, I mean that's what it sounds like it, but I'm not sure.
Mm,
Trying to search for it, but I'm not typing in the right thing.
I think, was that one that we discussed about moving the funds, because otherwise they'd be lost?
may have been in the minutes.
January or February? That's embarrassing.
Okay.
I think it was in the minutes. It was about the 31,000, reduce the number of down payment projects.
Where is it?
It was like a question of
10,000.
how this would impact the down payment program. Page 5.
Home consortium entitlement funds will reduce the number of down payment projects. I think they're down
Yes,
payment
that
projects, I
paragraph.
think, from 3 to...
You are an astute reader. I was
On
scratching my head there for a
Page
moment.
5 of the minutes.
Yeah. So, well, I guess you wouldn't have been here. So
No.
that was, let's see. Yeah, I did find it. Thank you. I'm not. I'll say from a programmatic standpoint, I'm not really worried about reducing the down payment projects going forward.
Mhm.
We just approved an amendment for $170,000 to do down payment grants. So I think
Oh, you got
we have.
more?
Yeah, that was I think an amendment that we had already done. So and that one was the one that maybe was mentioned.
Yeah.
Because it was, you're right, it was a while ago. It just took us a while to, before we took it to council. So, yeah, programmatically, I'm not concerned. I'm actually more concerned with spending our money than not expending it at this point. So, because we've had a couple other grant opportunities, which are really wonderful. The blight reduction program's coming online, the Federal Home Loan Bank program for my Urbana Dream. That helps supplement our funds, but it also makes it hard. I mean, we have a lot of things going on at once, and so I'm looking forward. We're hoping to speed up some of the fund expenditures, I think,
Okay.
so as to not make HUD mad, you know. So,
Okay, so some of those shortfalls that were seen at first, they're going to be taken care of with more money?
yes, we still have a little bit of funding that we have to commit. I want to say to the tune of $50,000. We addressed most of it with the amendments that we took to council this past month, but there's still, I think, a $50,000 shortfall. So we're close between the down payment amendment that we did, the TBRA for RPC, and then the Habitat Choto contracts. We're close, but yeah, we need to. Going forward, we're going to have to keep track of that a little more closely so that we don't have to do that every single year and figure out how we're spending our money. So, but we also have a couple of really huge projects that are coming up with the Aspen Court Urbana Townhomes, and I know that Kerr Avenue, the developer that went through the RFP process a few years back, is applying for tax credits again, and everybody's always really hopeful. So we'll see if those go forward. That would be a great place for us to invest our home funds in. I don't know if I can say the same for CDBG, but for home, I want to spend my home money.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we need to forward these to City Council or not. We have options of forwarding these as the drafts are right now. We can make some modifications, or we can not forward these to City Council. So who feels comfortable in a motion? And you're saying that we will still have a chance to make input. Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Yes, if you want to continue to review it, and if you see other things, to let us know as soon as you can.
Okay.
And we can put it in the, make the changes, or put it in our public comment participation section.
Okay. So someone could make a motion to forward it to City Council with the option of making future comments regarding things.
So, well, I mean, clearly there's a lot of work that went into putting all this information together. And so I'm comfortable making a motion that we should forward this draft plan to City Council with a recommendation that they continue, a recommendation that for approval. I'm messing up my words, I'm sorry. And knowing that there are still pieces that need to go into the plan, but it's not going to change the overall, the gist of it in terms of it's the detail work.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to forward both of these, the annual action plan and the longer plan.
Yes.
Okay. To forward them to City Council, knowing that there's more work to be done. But at this point, we have the Commission's approval. Is that it? Okay. All right. Any questions, comments? If not, all in favor say.
I have a
Go ahead.
question. I guess the implication is, as mentioned, there's a lot of work going into this, but how much of a struggle or a war would it be to have this even close to completion prior to this meeting and the deadline of May 15th? In other words, by the April meeting, in order to make a more of a, you know, a solid recommendation for approval. Do you understand what I'm saying? No? I mean, is there a way to have
We are in the
it?
April meeting.
I understand. I'm saying, is there any way to have it more complete by this meeting in future years? I think the implication.
Oh, in future years, I
Right,
understand.
right. In future years.
Yeah.
Speaking of the future.
Yes, well, the consolidated plan is 5 years, so after this is done, we won't have to do this again for 5 years.
got you.
And of course, the annual action plan is a much smaller document, and we do have that pretty much. But we will definitely make a note that in the future, that we, you know, will have the document pretty much completed, you know, by the April meeting.
And the electronic format will be repeating that on an annual basis, so staff will be more comfortable with it. Hopefully HUD will work out a lot of kinks. They literally shut down the, they had this function where you could ask for help with the system and ask questions. They shut it down because so many people had questions and they don't have the staff right now at a federal level to even help us with this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of bugs. Things are mislabeled and it's strange, and we won't have answers to them, unfortunately. I think it's going to take a couple of years before HUD's really going to be able to firm this up. And they have a couple other really huge initiatives that are tied to this system that they had to completely shut down because it was messing up this part of the system. It was bad. So, but yeah, we do apologize because we always follow the same schedule. We've been really great about it. We always bring this to you in March, and then, you know, we bring it back in April. And this was just one of those circumstances where it was like, we're not even close. There was no way. It would have been embarrassing and probably rude if we brought it to you in March, because it would have been a joke. So, yeah, I do apologize on behalf of all the staff. It's been me and 2 interns kind of in the trenches trying to figure this plan out, as well as the City of Champaign. They offered a lot of help, even though they don't have to do this. But they knew that it was such a big, overwhelming task that they offered up some of their staff too. So, knowing that we're a little understaffed. So, yeah, we'll definitely get back on schedule in the coming annual plan cycles, and then hopefully the next 5-year plan will be much smoother. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? If not, all in
Sorry,
favor?
I
Go
was
ahead.
just gonna say too, I think that the one thing that was key for me when I was reading the 5-year plan was that it's subject to change. Like, if the goals and the priorities of the community change, then, I mean, this is just a draft proposal, and that, you know, it's not like this is what the funding has to go towards necessarily. So I think that's key in being able to approve the minutes is it's just for HUD, and
5
that's
years is a long time, anything can happen.
Right.
You've got to be flexible enough.
Right, and the actual decision makers are city council, so
Right.
they're
They can worry about it.
regardless of what we say. Okay. Well, all in favor say aye.
I
Any opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Okay, we have a study session on here. I read that's because of, it's a requirement now?
Yes,
to be
per
on
our
the agenda?
bylaws, yes, so everything for the bylaws is listed in that way. And also in the future, if there is something that can come up, then
Mhm.
there is already on the agenda that you could talk about, but
Okay.
we don't have anything for that.
All right. Any other items or issues that the commission would like to discuss? If not, meeting now stands adjourned. Thank you for your participation.